We would patrol the community. If we saw the police brutalizing anyone, we would put an end to this. Usually the police wouldn't brutalize anyone because we were armed.
See absolutely no rational basis for considering him a hero of any kind.
While we are individually weak, collectively we're strong.
Police still don't know why Huey Newton was killed.
It's clear that for his family, friends, and his enemies, the memories of the man and the party he founded will live on.
The most important part of his life was his struggle for people who are in need.
I think of Huey as a friend, and I'm not going to think of him in any other way.
Now, there are those who are going to try to make Huey look like he was a gangster. But we know he was a brother. We know he was a fighter.
I'm heartbroken that he did, but it was something that I always kind of prepared myself for.
I love the plaque that we placed on there that shows the history of the party and who Huey was.
It might seem odd walking over to a median in the middle of West Oakland to do a sit-down interview, but it's the one place where we can capture Fredrika and Dr. Huey P. Newton together for their story.
My name is Fredrika Newton, and Huey Newton was my husband, the late Huey P. Newton, who was the co-founder and the leader of the Black Panther Party.
The Black Panther Party, originally called the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, was founded in Oakland in 1966 during the Black Power movement. It began as a grassroots organization that dispatched legally armed members to monitor police misconduct and inform people of their rights. It quickly morphed into an international party, developing social, educational, and health programs to serve Black and other oppressed communities.
Everyone knew about the Black Panther Party. I didn't have any intimate knowledge of the party. I was intimidated by the party. I wasn't politically active. I wasn't intimidated by what the party did or stood for. What intimidated me was that I just felt that I just wasn't enough. I didn't have a loud enough voice, that I really wasn't Black enough to be part of this vanguard organization. So, yeah, I was a teenager. I was raised in an activist family. My mother was an activist. We were marching in demonstrations from the time we could walk. But I, like many teenagers, wanted to do exactly the opposite of what my parents were doing.
Fredrika credits her neighbors, including prominent social activist and ex-husband to Jane Fonda, Tom Hayden, for her formal introduction to the party.
No one becomes a revolutionary because he wants to.
They took her to the Free Huey rally as he was released from prison.
I remember being really close to him when he was standing on top of the Volkswagen and being kind of mesmerized by, he looked like a god, and the crowd around me that was so diverse. I remember being struck by that.
Fredrika went off to college in Oregon, but she returned home on school break to an encounter that would change her life.
You end up being introduced to Huey by your mother. How did that happen?
My mother announced that Huey was coming over for breakfast. I thought, why? And she told me that she was actually doing work for the party. She was a realtor. Her whole life she'd fought against redlining and racism in the real estate industry. That was her work. And so she was responsible for placing Huey in a secure place when he was released from prison.
Fredrika's mother, Arlene Slaughter, was Jewish and a statewide leader in the fair housing movement. She made Black home ownership possible for many families in Oakland and Berkeley.
My mother would pose as the buyer. She was responsible for the first Black family buying a home in San Leandro.
The Black Panther Party was Arlene Slaughter's client.
What's your house like? Take me to that moment.
It's a tiny house. It was a little Berkeley brown shingle small house, and it was chock full of people. I remember what I wore that day.
What were you wearing?
I was wearing some purple tie-dye pants.
Okay.
And a top that didn't even match, a gold top. And I remember, they were asking all these ideological, esoteric questions of him, political questions of which it was way over my head. the conversations. I thought it was rude that I hadn't asked him anything, so then I asked him a question. The only question that really was of interest to me. What was it like for you in prison? I wanted to know who this guy was. He seemed so vulnerable, he's eating a lot, and he seemed a little nervous, and I just want to know, you know, even at that young age, I was more interested in who the people were rather than what they did, or try and connect the dots. And he put down his fork, and he was really thoughtful, and he looked down, and then he looked up at me, and he said, it was very lonely in prison. And it was something in that moment that really kind of captivated me.
Was it that interaction that day? Did something sit with you?
It definitely sat with me. And I was very unhappy at school. It was really a hard time in Oregon. I thought, I won't even fly over Oregon again after I left. There were Klan meetings happening still there. We were very isolated. There were only 35 black students on that campus. And it was just too much for me.
Fredrika packed her bags in Oregon, moved back to Oakland, and began dating Huey P. Newton. But she didn't join the Black Panther Party right away.
You joined on your own.
Yeah.
Was there a part of him that did not want you to be? Oh, really?
I think so. He never encouraged me to join the party, and I think he was a little disappointed when I did, or concerned, because it was hard. It was hard work.
Fredrika began volunteering at the party's Liberation School, which later became the Oakland Community School.
The school was a place where party members' kids not only went to school, but lived. Because we all lived communally, but everybody was working 24/7, so we needed a safe place for the children to be. And someone likened it the other day to homeschool, because none of us were trained. We weren't educators, but we were trying to teach kids how to think and teaching them their own history that wasn't taught in schools. Even now, the Black Panther Party history isn't part of any curriculum of any public school. Here it is, a free breakfast program. Little brown kids, little white kids being fed in the morning.
Back then, before the school day started, the party was feeding the community through the free breakfast program. Along with the 10-point program that established the goals and direction of the party, there were 65 survival programs, like the newspaper, free ambulance services, and even free clinics testing for sickle cell anemia and lead poisoning.
Because down here being in West Oakland, the houses had lead in the paint, and the babies were peeling the paint off the wall and eating the lead because it's sweet, and dying or having brain damage. So there was no testing going on. So our community was dying, and we were giving the community basic programs and looking after their basic needs because the government wasn't doing that.
In 1969, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover declared the Black Panther Party the greatest threat to internal security of the country. Later that year, Chicago police fired more than 90 bullets into an apartment, killing local party leaders Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, critically wounding others, all while the group was sleeping. The FBI also launched an aggressive counterintelligence program aimed at dismantling the Black Panther Party through physical attacks, misinformation, and infiltration.
We assumed that we wouldn't live a very long life. Our comrades were being killed, and they were young. Everybody was young. So we lived our life in the moment, as though there might not be a next moment.
And all throughout this turmoil, there was Fredrika and Huey, the comrades and couple, navigating the highs and lows of love over the years.
It wasn't an easy relationship to navigate, given the whole backdrop of what we had going on.
The Black Panther Party officially dissolved in 1982. COINTELPRO and the dissolution of leadership largely contributed to its demise.
Huey and I were married many years later after the party ended, and it still wasn't easy. He was hunted, and there was surveillance, and it never ended. After we were married, our own home was raided twice by the police. He was followed, he was harassed. virtually unemployable, who was gonna hire Huey Newton in the 80s to do anything. We didn't have much money, and I think it was the biggest heartbreak for him that finally we get married and he's unable to take care of his family in a way that he would have liked to have done.
Fredrika describes her late husband's challenges as painful to watch. He faced legal issues, including pleading no contest to embezzling state money from the Panther-founded Oakland Community School, and he was fighting addiction. But his family held tight to moments of joy.
He was a wonderful father to my son. I think Huey was at his best when he was with children. I think children know the essence of someone, so when children are attracted to you, that's a good thing. Huey was in my system. I mean, I just loved him. I just loved him.
People can intellectually prepare to lose someone. Given their years of activism, Fredrika did.
I'm heartbroken that he did, but it was something that I always kind of prepared myself for.
But in reality, her preparation was no match for the grief that gripped her on August 22nd, 1989.
The last time that I saw Huey was in my kitchen, and I told you we didn't have any money. And we were waiting on a movie deal, actually, his life story. And that day, Huey got a phone call, and the deal had fallen through. So he told me that, and I had an appointment there, and I needed him to go pick up our son from summer camp, and then we could talk about it when he got back. And I said, it's going to be all right. We're going to work through this.
Fredrika, who a month prior left her nursing position at Highland Hospital, was awakened the next morning by a call from a former colleague demanding she contact the emergency room.
And they put me on hold for a long time. And finally, this doctor gets on the phone, and I said, my name is Fredrika Newton. I understand that my husband, Huey Newton, is there in the emergency room. And he said, your husband's dead. And yeah, that's how I found out. They kept me in this little room that I'd heard people screaming from all the time that I had worked there in that trauma center. There's a scream that comes, it's almost, you can't describe it.
Police found Huey Newton lying on this street in a pool of blood before daybreak.
Dr. Huey P. Newton was gunned down by a man who was a drug dealer and member of the Black Guerrilla family. It happened a block from where Fredrika and I are sitting, so she took us there.
They were hosing right there because our car was parked right across the street there. So,
oh, good.
Yeah, this is where he took his last breath. All of a sudden, I had the whole legacy of the Black Panther Party and Huey Newton land in my lap. And I just felt ill-prepared to know how to handle it. And so for many years, I didn't.
In 1995, Fredrika co-founded the Dr. Huey P. Newton Foundation to preserve and promote the history of the Black Panther Party.
The Black Panther Party was the first revolutionary organization that came out in support of gay and lesbian rights. So.
The foundation has published books, created the first permanent public art piece on public land commemorating the legacy of the party, and much more.
I'm working with the National Park Service to create a Black Panther Party National Park as well. So we're working with the Oakland Museum. We've created a virtual reality piece, which will be in the museum and other places. Working with the state to create a curriculum so that now the Black Panther Party history is in every textbook from K through 12.
What do you think Huey would say, knowing all that you and the team have done?
I wonder. I come down here a lot, and I talk to him. And he used to call me his youngster. He called me his youngster or his bride. He said, my youngster, look at what you're doing. I think he'd be really proud. Oh, there it is.
Oh, wow. Here, I'll stop the light.
We rode around Oakland with Fredrika, and there's evidence of her late husband's legacy and the global movement he helped create just about everywhere.
Dr. Huey P. Newton way.
People are continuing to learn more about the unknown women of the party. At one point, women made up over 70% of the organization. Some scholars have characterized the Black Panther Party as the most influential organization of the 1960s, while other academics found their work more criminal than political.
I have these Black Panthers up here with guns on the second floor.
The history is undoubtedly controversial.
Judas and the Black Messiah.
But it's fascinating to see it go from being vilified in mainstream media to now imitated in pop culture and even inspire a Marvel superhero.
I'm actually not mad at it. I love that people have embraced the spirit of the Black Panther Party, and I'm hopeful that they dig a little deeper to see that this organization was based on love, that these young men and women did all this work that we've talked about, laid their lives on the line, sacrificed their family and all things material out of the love for the community.
Reporting in Oakland, Jobina Fortson, ABC 7 News.